Hello everybody, welcome back to the shop. Brand new year here, and we're going to make the best of it and get a bunch of projects done hopefully this year. And I hope the holidays were good for everybody. What you're looking at here is the copper tank. I just want to give you some updates on some things I've been working on. And I had this soaking with water in it for a couple days, trying to remove all that flux residue, do some water testing, and that all worked out fine, no leaks there, and I believe I have all the flux rinsed out of there. Sending unit is just sitting in there, it's not in for good. I cut the rod, everything is fit to the right size, it's working good, so that'll go in shortly. But you remember we were putting this screw-on cap on here, and we got a brass neck, we got a brass cap, and what they did with the cap, they gave this steel chain and this little steel hook there. That fishes down in there and keeps it from falling out. But what was happening was that chain was getting hung up on the bottom and I couldn't get the cap off. And it's steel, and I don't want steel in there anyway. So I got some brass chain, I got a brass cotter pin in there holding it together, and this chain was also getting stuck in there, and I didn't like that. So what I did for the, just for now, I might try and find some different chain, but I put a piece of Tygon tubing over the chain down the bottom there, and it's fuel proof, the fuel won't bother that. And I got a little 1/8 inch piece of brass rod, and I bent up a new little holder that'll fish down in there as well. So that Tygon is nice and smooth, and when that's down in there, it won't catch. The cap will come off nice and easy. So that's something I wasn't planning on, but I'll find some different chain and brass or something and switch that out when the time comes. But for now, we can actually use the tank with that cap without any trouble. You don't have to worry about a rusty steel chain or anything like that. So this tank is now 100% leak tested and ready for fuel. Plugs are in the bottom, and it's ready to go in a vehicle. And I've got some more stuff coming about the grommet that goes around here. I'll show you what I do for that, and that'll be an upcoming video. And let's move on to that CJ3A project. I'll show you where I'm at on that. Okay guys, we're underneath the CJ3A, and I'm just working out some distances and some clearance for that overdrive shifter right there. And I'm also finishing up the brake lines and doing things like that. This body's almost ready for paint, but we're in such a cold snap here. I'm not even going to try and paint with this kind of weather. You guys from the Northeast or whatever, you know what I'm talking about. Starts out below 0 in the morning, only gets up to around 10 or 15 degrees. It's just too hard to keep the proper amount of heat for painting right now. So we've got a lot of busy work to do. We've got a lot of things to finish up. I'm just taking you under here and showing you. We've got to do some finish grinding, and exhaust still has to go in. But I'll take you over to the bench. I'll show you what I'm working on today, and we'll keep busy, and hopefully the weather's going to break sometime soon and we can start painting little bits and pieces of this guy and keep it moving along. Okay, what I'm working on today is making some seat belt mounting plates. And back in the day, you could get it what they called a safety strap kit. It was an add-on thing. You could order your vehicle with seat belts, or you could put the kit in later on. And you really got to decide if you want seat belts or not. I'm not a real big fan of seat belts in vehicles with no roll bars. I'd rather be thrown from the vehicle if it was going to go over than have the vehicle come over and crush me. But some guys want the seat belts. Some guys, it's just up to you, But put that aside, and if you do decide you want to put them in. This is what they start out like. This is how this is what would come in your safety strap kit. So basically starts out with a 3x3 piece of steel. This is 12 gauge. I've got it laid out, and this next one we've got the holes in. That's where we're going to plug weld it, and you can see the layout on there. And then you get a 1/2 inch hole in the center, and it's the beginning of the finish up top here. That's what a finished blank will look like. Again, these will be plug welded right through these little, these are 17/64 holes right here. And then what they did was they welded a square nut on there. So when you cut a hole in your sheet metal, you put that on your hole, and you've got your nut to catch the bolt. That's a 1/2 square nut, and that's what your plate looks like when you ordered a safety strap kit, or even if your body was built at the factory ready for seat belts. This is what the bracket looked like, and again, it's 3x3 12 gauge steel. So that's basically how you make those. And it's just a regular square nut, and it's TIG welded on there. And before you TIG weld it, you want to take a little sander and get the zinc coating off there, otherwise it'll contaminate your tungsten. So these are all been belt sanded, and it's nice and clean. And then I just put a bolt through there. Just stick a bolt through there, and I TIG weld it completely around there. Not that it needs the strength, but you don't want any corrosion creeping in on the sides and getting under your nut and in between that sheet metal. It'll just start blowing that apart. So complete weld all the way around. I'll keep that nice and rust free. And I'll take you over to the body, and I'll show you where these actually go in the body. Okay guys, if you're thinking of putting seat belts in, your rear locations are going to be as follows. Your first plate, obviously it gets welded from the opposite side of that, but it'll be sitting in there like that. Your first plate goes in the wheelhouse, and off the floor to the center line of the hole, you're going to be 1.5 inches. And from the back to the center line of the hole that way, you're going to be 4 3/4. And you'll drill your 1/2 inch hole right there. You'll center that up, and you'll plug weld that plate right in there. And so that goes on each side in the wheelhouse. And then you're going to have a plate that's going to be in the floor. And you're going to measure 14 inches over from each wheelhouse. And that's going to be the center line, side to side. And then you're going to be 3 1/4 from your tailgate surround there to your center line. And you measure 14 inches from each side. Let me try and get you in there. And you can see it'll center right between the ribs underneath when you measure 14 inches. So those work out perfect, and there's a large bearing area, and that won't pull through the floor too easily because it's a piece of 3x3. So that's how they go in the back. So we're going to need 4 of those for the back, and then we're going to need 4 of those for the front. So let's move over to the front. I'll clear an area there and show you where they go. Okay, now when you're figuring your seatbelt anchors for your front, again, they'll be on the opposite side. They'll be underneath the body and then plug welded in, so you won't see this, but you'll just have the hole there. This will be on the back side, and when that's in there, you're going to be 2 inches to the center line from that edge, and from this bottom bend right here, you're going to be 3 1/2 inches up, and that's where you're going to pop your hole. And they'll be sitting somewhere like that on the back side, and that'll be your mount, and that goes for each side. and that's one anchor. And then your other anchor, again, it's going to be in the floor, and that'll get welded in from underneath. And try to get the tape out here. You're going to be that same 14 inches to the center line as you were in the back. And that's on both of them. It's 14 inches from each wheelhouse again. And I think you can see that okay. It's going to be a 3.5 inch center line back off your floor riser here. It's going to be 3.5 inches back. So that's how the factory did it. I've got some technical service bulletins about how to put these in, and I've got some factory blueprints of right from the Willys factory when they started offering the safety strap kit. But that's what it looked like. And like I say, if you're going to make them, it's just 3x3 12 gauge, half 13 nut, carefully TIG welded on there. Leave yourself some holes so you can plug weld it. You can flip the body over, lay that on the underside, and plug weld it right in there. So that's what we're working on today. And if you're building a body, you're not sure if you want the seat belts or not, you can always put these in. They look exactly like a factory mount. You could put a bolt in it, and it's not really obtrusive or anything. You could just put a bolt in it, and if you decide you want the seat belts later, you could always just pull a bolt and put them in. You'll have the mounts in the body, and you won't have to worry about putting them in after you paint it. So it's up to you guys whether you want belts or not, but for those of you that do, that's how you make the mount, and those are locations where you put them. Okay, I hope that helps you out. Okay, there's our 8 seatbelt mounts all welded up. And I just chased through those threads with a tap, a half 13 tap, just to get all the zinc coating out of there that got heated up. And they're ready to get some weldable primer in the back, and we'll go over the areas of the body that need the weldable primer, and we'll pop some holes in there, and we'll start getting these plug welded into the body. And like I say, we're just going to keep finishing up all the busy work there, and hope for better days for painting and stuff. We've got a lot of little parts that are ready to be painted, but like I say, it's just too damn cold. So we'll get these in. We'll start fitting the top and get all the footman loops in. I've got the canvas top back, and we'll get that fit on there. I've got some little bit of work to do on the windshield frame, and we've got to put the little curtain retainers on there and fill a bunch of holes that got drilled into there. But things are coming along. We're moving along on that 3A a little bit every day. And also moving along on that CJ5 snowblower Jeep. And I'm going to show you guys how I like to put some hoses in. And I'll show you some silicone hose and stainless steel fittings for that F-head engine. That's almost ready to be fired up. And I'll just show you how I like to put some heavy-duty hoses in there that last a long time. The rubber hoses have just been going to hell. I don't know where they're being made or anything, but I use silicone quite often, and used to be way back when you could only get silicone in blue, but a lot of companies now are making it in black. And a couple straight lengths of this and a couple stainless steel 90s, and you can make a pretty nice hose for yourself that's going to last, you know, it's going to outlast these new rubber hoses they're making. Or I shouldn't even say rubber, because everything's synthetic now, and they don't last very long. But I've got some hoses like this, you know, original to the restoration that I did at 15 years old, and no signs of wearing. So I'll show you how I put these in next. And we're still making just a little bit of progress. I haven't showed it in a while. on that CJ3B Welder Jeep. And I'm going to take you outside now and show you another shot of that. And the body's coming along, and I'm just having some trouble getting somebody on board to supply me a welder for that. I was hoping to make that into a Miller welder Jeep and try and get a welder from those guys without an engine in it, and I was going to PTO power it, but they won't even talk to me. So I don't know, maybe I'll try Lincoln, or I guess I could just try and rebuild that General Electric that's in there. But I'll take you out there in a little bit and show you what's going on. Okay, everybody, we're outside now where I got that 3B undercover here. And here's the General Electric welder. And it does work. The dials don't move freely. It's hard to change the polarity and move from different size electrodes there. But it does work. The engine did run when it was brought in. And if I can't figure out a modern welder for this, I may keep the General Electric motor. So there's two different ways I'm thinking of going with this project. If I can't get Miller or Lincoln to jump on board and make me or sell me a welder without an engine in it, you know, those new welders are so damn expensive. I'd like to get one without an engine in it, so I don't have to, you know, pay that heavy cost of a new one. But if I can't get one of those guys on board to help me with a welder, I'm going to take this General Electric welder apart and rebuild it and get it up and running. And if I do that, I'll probably keep the original 4-cylinder with the governor and the original drivetrain and just go with a stock rebuild. This vehicle, this welder is super heavy. You could see, I think you might be able to see, some overload springs in there, and they're broken, and the leaf springs are broken because it was so heavy. And if I keep this welder, I'm going to keep the stock drivetrain in the Jeep and just put it together like that. I've been getting a lot of requests to show guys a V6 engine swap. So if I can get a more modern welder in here, I get somebody on board to supply me a more modern welder, then I'm going to do a V6 engine swap in here. And I might upgrade the axles and maybe the transmission. Real popular is the V6 with a 420 or 465 transmission, and I've got a 465 ready to go into a project, and I'm kind of up in the air on this one. And I'm looking for a Chevy Vortec V6 for this project or for another one. So just putting a word out there, if anybody has or knows where there's a 1985 or very early 86, those 2 years, Chevy used the Vortec with a carburetor, and trying to do a simple swap with an 85 or 86 Chevy Vortec. The V6 was a good platform. You can build that into anything. And so if anybody's got a lead on one of those, came in the half-ton Chevy pickup, came in the GMC Safari and the Chevy Astro van. Anybody's got an 85 or 86, I'd be interested in it. Just shoot me a comment and let me know. It'd be great if you had one from a Chevy pickup with a manual transmission, so I can get the right bell housing and stuff like that. But anyway, getting back to this project here, I'm tinkering away with it. We're getting pretty close to having the body finished. And here's the original 4-cylinder. And don't get me wrong, I do like the stock engines in these things, but like with my tow truck, there's so much extra doodads on that one, that little 4-cylinder, It just doesn't have enough power. I can barely get home with it. Every road to my farm here, you have to go up a hill. And when you have a passenger in that vehicle, it's hard to get up any of the hills to get back home. So, that's why I'm looking for more power in the next vehicle I build. You know, obviously that snowblower Jeep isn't going to go too far, so I don't mind a 4-cylinder in that. But with this Welder Jeep, I'd like to get out and actually get on the road with it and do some small welding jobs with it, and, you know, just putt around town with it and actually be able to have power to be on the road with it. So, I'm up in the air about which way I'm going with this one. Anybody has any thoughts on that, let me know. I do have quite a few stock vehicles, and on this one, because that V6 is such a popular conversion, a lot of guys have been asking me about it, I was thinking of making this one into the V6 mobile. So, anybody's got an 85 or 86 Chevy V6 Vortec, please let me know. And I'll show you guys how to make the mounts, how to adapt it to a 465 or 420, how to put the transfer case to that transmission. Do a whole series on if anybody's interested. Seems a lot of guys are asking about that lately. So just send a comment, let me know what you think. If you'd like to see a stock rebuild or a V6 rebuild. I'm getting, like I say, I'm getting close to having the body finished. So when I pull this off and clean up the chassis, it'd be good to know which direction I'm going. And like I say, I'm still up in the air. So if you have any comments, just send them along. Be happy to hear them. Okay, everybody, we're back in the shop. I know I'm kind of jumping all over the place today, showing you different projects and different things that are coming for 2018. And here's one more of them. Your comments have not gone unanswered here. I get a ton of questions on how to put a dual reservoir master cylinder in, and this is one I just pulled out of a vehicle, and I will show you how to make that bracket and put this in correctly, the correct fittings to use, how to run the lines correctly. And this is coming. I've got a lot of things going on, and I just don't have time for everything, but this is in the works, and this is going to go on to the CJ3B project. A little too late to put it in the CJ5 project. I'm just going to leave that a single reservoir, but in the 3B we're going to put this dual reservoir setup and this bracket. This could kind of be a pain because the 2A and 3A and 3B and CJ5 and CJ6 frames, the width isn't always the same. So your bracket is kind of critical, and I like to make the bracket for every particular frame I'm working on. There are kits out there, I believe, but they never seem to work out right, so I just make the bracket as I need it. I'm going to show you how to lay that out and get that right. Here's your little pedal support, your little distribution block right there, and I'll just show you how we get that in there. And like I say, I know we've covered a few different projects today, but everything is getting a little bit of attention as I have time, and things are coming along nicely. And I'll show you more detailed stuff in the days to come. But a whole lot of stuff planned for this year, and if there's anything else that you've been wanting to see, just send me a comment. I'll try and get it out there for you. And like I say, I'm covering all the popular ones that guys have been asking about. Like I say, the cold has really got us kind of, you know, sluggish right now. Can't do much outside, but I'll get some vehicles apart and sandblasted and ready for this dual reservoir master cylinder, you know, pretty quick once the weather warms up. So that's going to happen, and a bunch of other stuff. And appreciate you watching. If you like the videos, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, tell a friend, do what you can. We're trying to grow the channel all the time, so get the word out there. And like I always say, if there's anything you want to see, send a comment, and I'll catch you on the next video.